That's my good sign, I guess.
Stole your line.
What's
I know,
that?
you stole my line.
Is that your line?
Good afternoon, thanks for making the drive
No, thank you.
down here. We made sure not to put you first thing in the morning because we know you have quite a hike down here.
I appreciate it.
No problem. It's good to see you again. I'm Amanda Carl, I'm the vice chair of this JAC. As you know, the process, we'll all go around, introduce ourselves, tell you where we're from. You'll have 2 minutes to make any opening remarks. Then we'll fire away with questions, and then we'll reserve about a minute at the end if you want to make any closing remarks. As you've noticed, Felicia Exposed is here videoing, so give them your good sign.
Okay.
Sit up tall. And we'll start with David this time.
I'm David DeArmas. I'm with Cramer Price in DeArmas in Orlando.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Vince Citro from the law offices of Horowitz and Citro in Orlando.
Andy Bardos of the Gray Robinson Law Firm.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Brett Renton Shutson, Bowen in Orlando.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Petra Brownlee, the Brownlee Law Firm.
Craig Dyer, Public Defender's Office, Daytona Beach.
Are we ready?
Okay. Well, good afternoon. My name is Joe Boatwright. I'm a county court judge in Putnam County. I live there. I live in Putnam County with my wife, Tammy, 2 daughters, Lauren and Kate, my son Joshua. I'm applying for this position because I want to be an appellate judge. I think my diverse background makes me qualified for this position. Academically, I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Florida. My JD is from Catholic University Columbus School of Law, where I graduated second in my class, summa cum laude. I was also on the Catholic University Law Review while there. I have 2 specialized law degrees. I have an LLM in taxation from the University of Florida's Levin College of Law and an LLM in judicial studies from Duke Law School. While at Duke Law School, I was on the Judicature's editorial board and the editor-in-chief of the Judicature Law Journal. Recently had an article published in the American Criminal Law Review of Georgetown on mental health in the court system. And a book review was just published on Brian Gardner's newest book. Professionally, I have practiced prior to becoming a judge in the private and public sector for over 10 years. 3 years as an assistant state attorney, where I tried numerous cases both at the circuit level and county level, felony and misdemeanor cases. I was also in private practice for a number of years, where most of my practice was in civil litigation and criminal litigation. And representing local government agencies, including the Putnam County Sheriff's Office, Supervisor of Elections Office, and City of Palatka and City of Interlochen. Also did some tax work while out in private practice. As a judge, I have been on the county bench for 6 years, and signed annually to a docket between 5,000 to 10,000 cases. And have presided over numerous jury and non-jury trials. In addition, I'm an acting circuit court judge, and I handled numerous circuit court matters for the past 6 years. I am also the administrative judge right now for the county, and I've had the privilege of sitting as an associate judge on the 5th District Court of Appeals, and recently have been selected to sit as an associate judge on the 4th District Court of Appeals this upcoming year. And not only have I practiced law, but I've also taught law at both the law school and the state college level for over 15 years. So again, thank you for having me, and if you have any questions, I would be glad to answer those at this time.
Judge, I had the fantastic privilege of vetting you, talking to all the references that you provide, and they had nothing fantastic, amazing things to say about you, despite my best efforts to crack it at all. By the way, the 4th said even if you get it, they're happy to have you come down and sit with them, that you could travel down. So one of the things that I found interesting about your background, and if you would just elaborate just a little bit, is this LLM Law School Master Program through Duke that you, I believe, just defended a thesis on, if I'm not correct?
Right.
Yeah. Why don't you talk a little bit about that 2-year program, how that interacted, how you were able to do that, and also serve as a judge?
Okay. Well, it is a program through Duke Law School where they select 25 judges every 2 years. These judges are from around the world. We had probably about half the judges are federal court judges, the other half are state court judges. The other 5 would be from different countries. We had somebody from the High Court of New Zealand, High Court of Sierra Leone. I sat next to the Chief Justice of the Arizona Supreme Court and one of the justices on the North Carolina Supreme Court. We had professors from all over the country come in, experts in different areas. Brian Gardner spoke on legal research and writing. Justice Alito taught constitutional interpretation. It was just an incredible opportunity, especially when you're on there on a full scholarship. It was very helpful when you said how I was able to do that. Colleagues really pitched in and helped and covered dockets, and we were able to manage that because we would have to go a month at a time for a 2-year period and also write a thesis. So yeah, it was very time consuming, but a very rewarding experience.
And I thought it was also very telling that, you know, being at Duke Law School with the professors, I heard you don't always agree with what they were teaching, that you wouldn't shy away from politely challenging that professor.
Yeah, there's probably some philosophical differences with some of them.
In their interpretation of following the rule of law. So I appreciated learning a little bit about that. One of the things that I found very interesting was, you know, in 2008, you were doing the tax court, like you were going into the tax, and then suddenly you just did a about face, if you will, and went into the state attorney, I think it's right, state attorney's office.
I went back to manage the state attorney's office.
Correct. So can
Yes,
you
sir.
explain that decision and what that, how
Sure.
that occurred?
Well, I spent a couple years I was working full-time, going part-time, getting my LLM in tax, and so I still was practicing tax law for a couple years. Had had a job offer with the Department of Justice Tax Division, was pretty much set to go in that direction, and then at the last minute got an offer from a firm out of Jacksonville. Took the offer from the firm out of Jacksonville. I mean, just to be honest, the financial sector just wasn't doing well at that time. I was kind of the last man into that firm, and just had a new child, and an offer came up with Mr. Larissa to work for him, and I kind of went that direction. I still use the LLM in tax. I used it while I was at the state. I worked financial crimes for 4 years while I was there, and I taught tax, partnership tax, corporate tax, tax procedure, federal income tax at the law school level for 6 years.
One of the questions I've also got for you is, what's the longest you've taken to rule on a motion or trial?
A couple weeks.
You've never filled out any of the little 60-day notifications? Okay.
I think it's very important to get decisions out in a timely manner. I think that's probably a major complaint of these trial court judges. I'm very cognizant of that.
I know my colleagues have a ton of questions. I spent a lot of time talking with your references, and I appreciate all of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon again. First of all, I want to say it was a delight receiving one phone call as a reference for you from my former editor-in-chief, Charlie Douglas. We were on law review together and hadn't spoken to each other in a long time, so it was really cool to get that phone call and catch up while he was saying amazing things about you. I have one question for you, and then I'll move on. What is one case that you have read recently that you think was particularly well-reasoned, and why?
At which one?
At any case, at any level.
The Devon case for the Florida Supreme Court goes through a statutory interpretation for an ambiguity, how you interpret an ambiguity. I think they did a really good job of going through that in that case.
If you would, Your Honor, I did not do your background check, but I spent a lot of time in federal court, and Judge Mendoza talked to me about you. And it would take the length of time of your interview for me to tell you all the great and wonderful things he said about you. But some of the judges I spoke to at the District Court of Appeal and at the Florida Supreme Court explained that as a circuit judge, you would go to the DCA with a different view than if you had gone straight from the county bench. And I noticed in your application that you're an acting circuit judge. What is your role in that acting circuit judge capacity? What are your day in and day out responsibilities?
It's not my primary responsibility. We handle a lot of emergency motions. If we need to fill in for anybody, I handle foreclosure cases, dependency cases, family law cases, criminal dockets. I'm assigned to part of the family law docket now, so I wouldn't say it's the primary purpose of what we do, but I mean that's basically the day in and day out. If I'm on call, any emergency motions that come in that are circuit based and the circuit judge is not there, then we'll handle them. But again, like I said, I'm assigned to part of one of the circuit dockets, handling truancy court cases right now, but I've handled quite a few cases in our circuit. And when we have the opportunity in our circuit when judges are out, that we can go cover their dockets, and it's people people bounce back and forth between the counties and our circuit.
So do you think that there's anything that you haven't seen as part of the circuit bench because you're a county judge acting as a circuit judge? Or do you feel that acting experience is sort of giving you the view of the role of the circuit judge?
I think at trial court level, one of the biggest things that which is different from the appellate court level is the number of people that we deal with. I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges, dealing with people, having the patience to deal with large numbers of people and attorneys that come in front of you. The academic or the legal side has not always been, I mean, it's challenging, but that's, usually the harder part for me is always dealing with the individuals that come from me. So I don't know whether I go to the circuit bench and sit on the family law docket for 2 years, whether that makes me any more qualified than I am right now.
I've got a question about the PCA process. We get
Okay.
PCAs on bids. What your thoughts on PCAs? Underused, overused? Are they legit?
I think I got asked this question the last time. I had written.
It wasn't me, because I wasn't here.
It was-
I think
It was mine.
Yeah. There you go.
I think I
So
had-
so happy you're here, David.
That's
I
a
can
good
move
question.
on.
I had read an article the last time I came in, and I was kind of surprised at the large number of PCAs on the fifth. I tend to like to write. On the trial level, there's a lot of times you're required to write. Motion to suppress, you got to make findings of facts and conclusions of law. So I think there's some schools of thought with that. One is, you only write opinions when you're overturning a lower court's decision and giving a direction. Then you're clarifying the law or changing the law. Or there's an overly complex case and you want to give direction to the parties as to why you decided what you did. And I think there's some reasoning behind that is if there's kind of a clear-cut issue, there might not be any reason to write an opinion. So if you've got a plea colloquy that was done perfectly by the judge, there's probably not a reason to write an opinion on that matter. I know there is at least some thought that by writing an opinion in every case that you might cause a confusion, just keep adding to the body of law, which might cause a confusion. Of course, I do know there's the alternate, there's another, the alternate viewpoint is that without a written opinion at the fifth or at that level that you're precluded from discretionary review. I also know that sometimes you might have say a prosecutor makes a closing argument that you find improper, but the court thinks it's harmless error in the scope of things and doesn't write an opinion, and that person, is whatever the behavior was, he thinks it's okay because he got PCA'd. And I guess there's just the general thought that parties would like to know why the court ruled the way they did in the case. I prefer to write, but I've sat on the fifth and kind of dealt with some of those issues, and you can kind of see it from both points of view.
Judge, can you talk about your judicial philosophy? I guess Brett was touching on it a little bit, how you might have disagreed with people when you were getting your master's. And can you talk a little bit about that? What do you think that your judicial philosophy was? What was it that you disagreed with?
Well, I think judges generally should be fair and impartial and follow the law. I think they should we talked about this, make timely decisions, be respectful of the litigants, and be humble. I think in that process of being humble, it's not only the way you carry yourself and treat other people, but how you view yourself as a judge. I think judges should see themselves as having a limited role, not usurping legislative authority. I think a judge's job is to interpret and apply the law, not make the law as they think it should be. And so I think when you start dealing with decisions that might be seen more as maybe a living constitutional decision or an activist decision, those are times that I think that disagrees with my philosophy.
So can you talk a little bit about that rule of law that you believe in and upholding it and just interpreting the law? Can you talk about stare decisis and what role you think that plays?
Well, I think stare decisis is very important because it provides stability within the court system. I think people base their business decisions, say like the Tierra Condo case, they base their business decisions on the economic loss rule, and then it's done away with. I think that can cause problems. Generally on the fifth, if I were to sit on the fifth, we have to follow the precedent of the Florida Supreme Court. We have to follow the precedent of the United States Supreme Court on all constitutional matters, and the only time you would be able to change precedent on the 5th is if you heard a case in bonk. But I know Justice Scalia had a very pragmatic approach where he was less likely to change precedent. Justice Thomas, for example, is more likely to want to change precedent. I think if the law's wrong, that it should be changed. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did, thank you.
In hiring law clerks, what would you look for? What qualities would you look for when you're hiring?
I think the job is largely academic, so research and writing skills and good academics. Obviously good character, hardworking, I think those things, but I think it's a largely academic and intellectual job, and the law clerks do. My experience of being on the 5th is the law clerks do quite a bit of work, and so they need to be able to write well and research well.
Have you had experience with the Dahlberg standard? And if so, do you have any opinions on it or any views on it?
You're talking about the case that just came out, switching it back to the Pratt standard. Yeah, we had Dahlberg challenges to DUI cases, DHGN. I thought I'd probably have a lot more, really, especially with DUIs, and I didn't. But I have experience with it. I don't have an opinion one way or another. I think dealing with the old standard is probably a little easier for the judges. The Dahlberg standard puts a lot more requirements on the judges, but that's what the Florida Supreme Court ruled, so I have to follow that.
Let me ask you this, do you believe that when we send our names up to the governor, that it should be required that everybody on that list be or have some judicial experience in their background?
Not necessarily.
Why?
I think there's good judges that sit on, there's judges on the 5th who are doing a great job that have been in private practice before. Some I think were, in like legislators and things like that I hear are doing a good job. I think trial experience is very important, to get back to the question that was asked before, but a lot of that is just on you kind of understand the way judges make decisions and the speed at which you have to make decisions at the trial court. It's much different at the appellate level when you get to sit and kind of think about the problem. A lot of times you don't, and you get to see the basis, these decisions that become the basis of appeals. So I think trial experience is very important, but obviously there are individuals who sit on the appellate courts who do not have any trial experience or judicial experience. I mean, I think that provides a good mix, for the group. So I don't really have any, I wouldn't say that has to be the requirement.
Is there a particular judge that's now sitting on the 5th DCA that you'd like to emulate if you were chosen?
On the 5th, well, Judge Berger is, we all respect her in our area, so she's somebody that I really look up to. Harvey J. is somebody that I went to judicial college with. He's on the 1st, and I really like him, and Spencer Levine down the 4th. I mean, those are some DCA judges that I look up to.
Okay, well, if you'd like to make some closing remarks.
Okay, well, again, thank you for having me, and thank you for taking your time to interview me. I just hope that you would consider my background, my academic record, the extensive trial experience that I've had at both the judicial level and in the private sector. I've tried as a judge or as an attorney over 100 jury and non-jury cases. Hope you would consider my work experience and the fact that I've taught law and would give me the opportunity again to send my name to the governor. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year.
Happy
New Year.